Fraser and the work they're doing. We hope to tell you some pretty compelling stories about Fraser and how they've helped my family. To learn about autism and some of my family stories of autism and some of our music too. Looking forward to a wonderful hour with you, and we hope you'll all be able to stay for the reception afterwards. At this time, if I could ask you to turn off your cell phones or silence them. You knew it was coming. Come to think of it. Make your minds off. Why don't we start with some introductions? My name is Eric Schnell. I'm a member of this faith community, Falcon Heights United Church of Christ. I'm also the very proud son today of Bill and Ruth Schnell. Would you both please stand up? They're musicians for today. I'm the exceedingly proud husband of my wife April, whose birthday happens to be today. My son Timothy, who has Asperger's syndrome and is an amazing speaker, and I'll introduce him in more detail in a moment. Tim? My son Matthew, who is the graphic designer in the family, and he designed that graphic on the program. Matthew, would you stand up? And Chris, are you here? Chris Bentley from Fraser. She might be in the... Oh, there she is. Chris in the back from Fraser Child Family. Thank you for coming, Chris. So where does the story begin? When we talk about autism in our family, our story begins with the birth of Tim. And there were two things we learned right away when Tim was born. One is that we loved this child more than we could possibly imagine beforehand. And any of you who are parents know exactly what that feeling is. And the second thing we learned pretty quick was that something wasn't right. When Tim was born, he was born healthy at an APGAR score of 5, and pretty quickly things started to go downhill. He had a hard time feeding. At one point we had to feed him with an eyedropper full of breast milk, one eyedropper at a time. As you can imagine, this wasn't good for parents or child. We ended up with a lot of sleepless nights. And it turns out part of what he was dealing with is oral motor coordination issues, which are part and parcel of many forms of autism. So we had a lot of long nights. Tim had extreme sensitivity to different kinds of stimuli, different senses, and he'll talk more about that a little bit. He would startle when an icicle outside our window dripped. That would shake him. He had a hard time sleeping, comforting himself, helping all these senses which were basically on fire for him, so hyper-aware. He had a hard time settling himself. So sleep became difficult. It was difficult for the first 4 years of his life, which meant that all three of us at the time were suffering pretty good. There's a special kind of hell of sleep deprivation, especially for that period of time. And I don't say this to evoke any kind of sympathy or pity, but just to state a fact. You have a different state of mind when you don't get enough sleep, especially over a period of years. It's no secret that that's a form of torture. So, the reason why I wanted to go into that in some detail is to set the context for me meeting Pat Police and Fraser. At the time, we were driving Tim 3 days a week to Wisconsin, to a place called the Special Children's Center. 3 days a week for speech, occupational, and physical therapy. And I will thank the Maker every day that I worked at the University of Minnesota, where they gave me the time to be able to take off to help my child. I don't know where we'd be today without you. I also don't know where we'd be without Fraser, because we had to find a place that didn't just focus on therapy for the kid, but focused on support for the entire family. A 360-degree wraparound care for the family. And that's exactly what Fraser provided for us. And the moment that I'll never forget was when Pat Police said, "We're going to take care of your child's clinical needs so you can be freed up to be the parent." Does that make sense? We didn't have to worry about therapy and we had to worry about it in the sense we had to get him there. But that wasn't our job anymore. We could love him for exactly this amazing child that he was. That moment alone freed us up in ways that, frankly, compelled us to be here today raising money for Fraser. Now, Fraser does a whole variety of other things. They provide evaluation services. They provide physical, speech, and occupational therapies. They provide social skills group. And if you have and please stop by the table that Chris has set up in the gathering room afterwards at the reception to learn more about what they do. And I'm happy to say that our event's already successful. I set an initial goal of $1,000, and thanks to some very generous people who couldn't be here today, we've already achieved $750 of donations towards it. So let's see if we can put it way over the top. And the thing specifically that we're raising money for today is Fraser's product development. They do some amazing work to come up with adaptive technologies that'll help people on the autism spectrum be successful and learn social skills. And I'm holding up my iPhone here because they have touch applications out there that they've developed. They have a face window application, and Chris will give some demonstrations of that later. Our family really wants to see them and support them in their development of more and more of these kinds of products, because we know that when you lift up autism, you'll be able to see that these people have phenomenal gifts. People on the autism spectrum are incredibly gifted. We need to unlock that. We also need to help create a culture where that can be unlocked. And we'll talk about all those things today. There are baskets in the back of the church. There's also a basket by the Fraser table in the gathering room. I hope you'll consider giving generously today. April and I have frequently talked about how autism has been like another graduate degree for us, considering the number of things that we've learned. And so at this time, it's my tremendous pleasure to introduce my wife, partner, best friend, and fellow student, April Schnell.
And I get to follow that. I don't know how to do that, but I knew I did want to say a few short things at tonight's program. And so with that, I thought I'd talk a little bit about what happens when I tell people that I have a child with autism. Mostly what I see is confused looks on their faces. People know that it's a serious condition, but they don't really know what it is. And most importantly, they wonder what they can do. Friends have asked me how they can be an ally to our family and to other families with autism. And my answer is, the short answer is, learn, listen, and engage. Learn whatever you can about autism by reading as much as you care to about it. Listen deeply to what individuals and families say about what their journeys have been like. And engage with people who have autism wherever and whenever possible. Acknowledge them, talk to them, spend time with them, and have conversations. Call them, invite them out, have them over, basically get to know them. With autism, one of the common features which spans across all individuals is impaired social communication. This can be due to physiological problems, speaking mechanism, or something called mind blindness, which is an inability to take another's perspective. And because of these communication problems, there's a disturbing trend of persons with autism progressively becoming more socially isolated. The trouble is that kids with autism are sometimes all too happy to play alone, but ironically need even more social skills practice than the typical kids. It seems to me sometimes that at best, kids with autism are ignored, and at worst, they're bullied. Today, my message to everyone with ears to hear it is to engage with persons on the autism spectrum. And some may think this message is motivated by what would be helpful to our family, or even altruistic of what would be a nice thing for others. And these things may be true, but today I'm suggesting that engaging with persons with autism is a nice thing to do for yourself. It's an opportunity for those of us who are in the wider, what we call neurotypical community, to learn about and become our best selves. At a nearby church in Minneapolis, there's a program called Circle of Friends. It's for youth with disabilities. And Circle of Friends type programs are numerous, and the concept really isn't new or unique. But this particular program was started by a mother of a child with a disability, and the program has been going strong for about 15 years. And the gist of the program is this. Each neurotypical youth volunteer is provided with some education about disabilities, and then paired up with an individual with a disability for peer mentoring, peer-to-peer mentoring, during social activities that take place every Monday night. The program is highly successful, and each year literally hundreds of persons with disabilities are mentored, And the neurotypical youth volunteers outnumber the youth with disabilities by 2 to 1. That means there's more volunteers than there are kids with disabilities. You might be thinking to yourself, well, what a wonderful benefit to the individuals with special needs, and that's true enough. But what was most surprising to me to learn was that participants' feedback reveals that the individuals who get the most out of the peer mentoring relationship are the neurotypical youth volunteers, more so than the individuals with disabilities. A friend of mine whose daughter has autism recently asked her daughter's straight-A student cheerleader type mentor why she volunteers. This mom asked her daughter's peer mentor, "What are you getting out of this?" And the high school girl replied, "This is the only place I can truly be myself." I thought that was hugely powerful. There's a power in what our kids with autism evoke in the rest of us. They have so much that they can teach us. And for those of us who are willing to venture a relationship, to have an unusual conversation, or to reach across a divide, we could have a non-media based reality experience that's unparalleled in the rest of our lives. So listen, learn, and engage again and again and again. And you might be surprised at how this engagement enriches and enhances your life. And I want to thank you all so much again for being here.
Thanks, April. One of the themes of what April is talking about is gifts, and it's, as I said earlier, it's such a gift for you all to be here today. Gift to us, and people with autism offer such tremendous gifts. I'm also very pleased at this point to introduce another big gift in our life, and that is my mother, Ruth, who's here to share her musical gifts with us. As you'll see on the back of your program, my mom has a master's degree in music and piano performance and has taught music at all levels. She's given so many gifts to us, though, throughout the years. She was there on the other end of the phone when we weren't sure what we were doing as new parents. She is the autism article clipper par excellence. And she's loved us throughout the whole process. Talk about ears to hear. She's been there for us all along the line. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, my mother. grew up with her and it still blows me away. Thanks so much, Mom. It's my great pleasure now to introduce my son, Tim. Tim is a 14-year-old, 8th grader at Roseville Area Middle School. And there's so much to say about him in so little time, so let me focus on one of his great gifts. We call him Memory Man. He has a phenomenal ability to remember information. And in fact, just this weekend, we've coined a whole new term. You're all familiar with the new verb anyway, to Google, right? To find information. We Toogle in our house. If there's ever an experience we need to remember, what was that restaurant we ate at? What was the name of it? We Toogle it, which means you ask Tim, and he's right there with the information. He's incredibly bright and one of the most generous human beings I know, and I'm incredibly proud to be his father. Tim.
Hi, my name is Tim, and here are some things I'd like you to know about autism. I'm interested in biking, technology, skiing, photography, video games, the band U2, volleyball, and badminton. I'm first and foremost a person, not autism. People should keep a regular conversational tone when talking to people with autism. Talk like you normally would. Don't act oddly in front of autistic people. Reach out to autistic kids because some of us have a hard time making friends. Some of us have heightened senses. Did you know each person has their own unique smell? The people who I really enjoy spending time with have smells that are pleasant to me. Sounds can be a little overwhelming. Sometimes in classes and in the hallways at school I get a little edgy because of the loud noises. And sometimes I like wearing softer, lighter, or loose-fitting clothing. For example, jeans are way too heavy and inflexible. For me, I like being on the little colder side of a perfect temperature outside because I get tired often. For taste, I tend to like things that are spicy. I don't often like foods that are mixtures such as casseroles. I have an unusually accurate memory for topics that are important to me. For example, I remember the room number for our trip to Colorado one summer, 4103. If my mom can't remember someone's name, she asks me, and I usually remember. I have a great attention to detail. In 2nd grade, when I was learning cursive writing, my teacher told me that the sentence she was going to give me had every letter in the alphabet. The sentence was, "The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog." But someone had typed the sentence wrong, using the word jumped instead of jumps. There wasn't an S. My teacher said I noticed it in less than a second. Autistic people take things very literally. For example, we have a hard time understanding idioms. And last but not least, be patient with me. I'm doing my best. And now I'd like to introduce my grandpa, Bill Schnell, who will play for us. He has supported my family in so many ways, researching autism treatment options early on, asking for prayers from his faith community, and being on the end of the phone when we needed him. My grandpa has a master's degree in music with a major in applied organ and a doctorate of musical arts and choral music. Grandpa is going to play a selection of pieces arranged by Gordon Young, and he also asks that you refrain from applauding until after the last piece. Ladies and gentlemen, here's my grandpa.
I got to tell you a quick story about how this idea, this benefit came to me in the first place. In the back of the church here, the first Thursday of every month, Pastor Rich has Juncture One, which is this really neat, intimate little service. And at the beginning of one, he was playing a recording of an organist. And my first thought was, oh, my dad can totally kick this guy. Well, anyway, so right after that service, I went and chatted with Pastor Rich, and that's what brings us to the benefit today. That and a lot of work by a lot of people here. So I want to share some thoughts with you on being different. And for those of you who know me, this will come as no surprise because you've probably heard people say, oh, Eric, that guy's different. But I don't know that we can talk about autism without talking about how we think of difference. So I wrote a poem. It's been 30 years since I've written my last poem, so I'll just offer that as a little qualification. So my journey on understanding difference started when they called me fish eyes. You see, I have these giant eyes. And it might come as no surprise that kids focus on their size. Why? Eric frequently cries, my teacher said. Not like the other guys, was my secret dread. I wanted to say to those kids acting snotty, sure, sticks and stones can break my body, but words can also cut me deep, you little creeps. Yeah, I know I was different, because I felt so much. And I sucked at being cool and keeping it in. Still do. The sadness leaked out of these fish eyes of mine, and kids laughed and teased until my face shined. And I'd come home and say, you know, I'd be lying if I said my day was fine. I wanted so badly to be normal. Fish eyes launched my quest to be the same. Play the game, have a name that people would call out in Zoom class and say, hey, Eric, you're strong, come along, you belong. But after a while, I began to hate my style. And then for a while, I forgot I had a style. Never forget you have a style. But my style came back eventually because I had a family who loved me and loves me. Constantly, lavishly, generously, unconditionally. I still do. And this is why the guy you see speaking pretty passionately now knows that the best way for me to be is to be unusually. For you see, I have a secret to confess. You know, on second thought, it's something to profess. Yes, I'm different. I am different. Heavens, yes, I'm different. And not to be too informal, but come on, y'all, when you break it down, none of us are normal. Right? Right? Right. And you know, it feels really good to say. So let's all say it on a day like today. Let's join together and proudly say, we are all different.
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 And on a day like today, let's say it a different way. My friend Mari will teach us how to say we're all different in a different way, in American Sign Language.
Absolutely. All right. We're going to learn we. Using an index finger, start one side of your chest and draw a big circle. We. And then the sign for different. And what you're going to do is you're going to repeat it. Because we are different. So we are different. Good job, you
We are
guys.
different. Let's keep doing this. We are different. We can say we are different in different ways on a day like today. We are all different, you and me. We're all on some spectrum of difference, aren't we? Now, what does our lack of normality have to do with autism as a disability? Well, you see, we can't learn from people on the autism spectrum if we aren't prepared to radically welcome the parts of ourselves that don't actually fit with the idea of normality, that's actually full of, well, you know. Wait for it. Okay. We can't open the gifts that autistic folks give if we don't first lift up the different ways that we live. We can't lift up autism without causing a schism between our idea of normality and our deeply felt instinct to be who you be. Lifting up autism means we're willing to change, to confront our fears of being seen as strange. Lifting up autism means we proudly proclaim that normality sucks. We're not all the same. Lifting up autism means that we promise to fully engage autistic folks among us, to be their friends, their allies in community, because today, together, we see that we all have a longing for belonging. We all have a longing for belonging. And people with autism belong with us. If we all lifted up autism today and tomorrow and embrace what is different, I'm sure it will follow that great days will come for people like my son. The day will come when more autistic children get early access to compassionate health care that treats all of their symptoms, like the health care provided at Fraser. The day will come when autistic youth are invited to birthday parties, sleepovers, play dates, and club meetings. The day will come when autistic elementary schools students are in the very center of their class pictures, surrounded by friends. The day will come when autistic high school students are invited by their neurotypical peers to eat with them during lunchtime at school. The day will come when autistic adults are hired, supported, recognized, and rewarded for their gifts. The day will come. And the thing is, once I've lifted up autism, then I can see that lifting up autism actually lifts up me. So it seems appropriate at this time and place to say that autism has taught me about grace. It started with fish eyes, my quest to belong. But on the journey of autism, I've learned a new song. Amazing